Part 27, Day 3. Leucadia, 7:45 a.m. Sarah had blacked out then. When she came to, the factory machines had been shut down, but there was still noise. Sirens, screeching tires, excited murmurs. She was being lifted onto a gurney and gently strapped in. She felt pain, but somehow it was muffled and distant, disconnected. Faces swam into focus and out again. Attendants, police, onlookers. As they put her into the ambulance, she saw a black van nearby. The word coroner was printed on the side, and a bag was being loaded into it as if it were a sack of flour. She knew it was Reese. Before she had time to mourn consciously, the doors of the ambulance clanged shut and sent her reeling back down into the blessed darkness. As the ambulance pulled away, Greg Simmons hiked up the itchy collar of his leisure suit and turned to go into his office. What a way to begin a day. But he was intercepted by his assistant, Jack Kroll, a compact, hyperactive kid with a genius IQ and the street smarts of a cocker spaniel. "Look at this, Greg!" he shouted enthusiastically, and thrust a small electronic chip, the likes of which Greg had never seen before, into his palm. It was maybe 35mm in diameter, and laced with imprinted circuitry that made absolutely no sense whatsoever, although it seemed to be very efficiently connected. For what purpose? "Where'd you get this?" Jack indicated the assembly line in the back of the building. I wasn't supposed to, but I crossed the police line because this thing was..." Greg clamped his arm around Jack's shoulder and pinched his arm, hard. Jack howled and tried to break free until Greg nodded towards a patrolman standing about 6 feet away. They walked into the parking lot away from the knot of co-workers and officials. Jack told Greg he had found the chip on the floor in the middle of a lot of strange-looking debris. Greg kept turning it over and over in his hands, puzzled and getting more and more excited. Did the boss see this? Loyal Jack looked wounded. "No, Greg, I brought it right to you. Nobody knows I have it." Greg nodded happily. "Let's keep it that way." "Huh?" Jack said, confused. "Don't you want to take it down to R&D? "What for? So old man Kleinhaus can get the credit. We're on salary here, pal. Design techs for hire. They give a shit about us. Why make them rich?" "What are we going to do?" Greg looked into his foolish friend's eyes. Jack was his treasure, an undiscovered artist in electronic engineering. Everyone else just saw the package. Greg saw the contents. That was his advantage. He and Jack would go into business for themselves. A small office with a little furniture, just a front for the lab in the back. He'd mortgage his house, his car, his wife and kids, and sink all Jack's savings into this project. Once they figured out exactly how to exploit what must have been some kind of new microprocessing circuit, they would figure out what it should be used for. It took them longer than Greg originally thought it would. 16 months and 4 days to be exact. Their gamble paid off. They got a bank loan, patented the circuit, and waited to get sued. They didn't. Nobody knew what the hell it was, as though it had dropped into their laps from another planet. But it was just beginning to make them wealthy beyond their wildest fantasies. In another 2 years, they had their own company, bigger than the one they had suddenly quit after finding the chip. One of the most difficult tasks they faced in those years was coming up with a name for their fledgling company. All the other design corporations had already used up every possible combination of tech-sounding syllables. One day, Jack walked into their office with a big shit-eating grin on his face and announced that he had found the right name. Greg agreed, and within days they had incorporated under the legal title of Cyberdyne Systems. Thinking back on the whole serendipitous, mysterious train of events that had led to their good fortune, Greg had to admit, it was fate.